What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Late Round Fantasy Football Show. This is episode 13, and it's crunch time. We're talking about making or breaking decisions. Making decisions that will make or break your fantasy draft. That's what we're talking about. But it is going to make your team a lot better. What can't be worse is this intro. So let's just get into it. It's a Late Round Fantasy Football Show sponsored by DraftKings. Are we live, JJ? Because I don't see comments.
We should be live, yeah.
Okay. Do you see comments?
It says live at the top. We don't have any comments yet.
Oh, someone show me that there's a comment. Someone that's in the chat, show me there's a comment, just to make sure that
it says we're live. So
yeah,
I'm gonna
okay.
Yeah, there we go. They all just
all right.
up.
It just all happened all of a sudden. Okay,
yeah.
Good. All right, let's just get right down into it. Sorry, JJ, for that opening, but my brain's
and now I got the borders of the screen. You can see the black on the spreadsheet. I mean,
what are we doing here?
Yeah, what's going on here?
Okay, well, let's just it's that time of year.
I'm destroyed right now with work.
I know. You got the late round draft guide. People are just clamoring for.
When I tell you guys, I'm very grateful for all of this, right? But when I tell you guys that I get messaged 20 plus times a day about rankings updates, that's an understatement. That's an undercount. It's probably 30 plus times a day. And I try my best to communicate when everything's going to be published.
Yeah.
I wish that there was a working doc. We're going to work on that for next season.
Yeah.
Have more of a working doc sitch with the rankings. But man, my inbox gets flooded. My mentions get flooded. The Discord gets flooded. It's just people, need their rankings and want their rankings this time of year. I'm trying though. I promise you I'm trying. I promise.
They want help. And you're going to get it because either by tomorrow morning, you will receive updated rankings, an updated guide. And we just appreciate everyone that's already purchased. And just know we have the blueprint for you in this late round fantasy football draft guide. It's up to you to take that and just dominate your league. There's a lot of great stuff in it. Will be more updates tomorrow. We do have the rankings, do have spreadsheet versions of the rankings. Page 241.
Yeah. And my plan with the guide is to get it out tonight.
Paul Slive says, just tell me who to draft.
Yeah.
That's
the good thing is that we have, that's really funny because the whole first section of the guide is how you shouldn't focus so much on rankings. And then people are clamoring for the rankings, but they don't realize the draft. The best questions are, does your guide give you PPR rankings? And then you read the guide and then you're like, okay, now I see why I don't need to care so much about that.
Well, and honestly, if you have been watching this show, if you've been interacting with all of our stuff, if you've read the draft guide, you should want to go against people that are only bringing that one sheet of rankings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then you have the advantage over them automatically. You can adjust to whatever's happening in your draft. And that's kind of what I was mentioning earlier in the Discord, is that there could be a draft like 10 times that I go in the same league 10 times. I'll come up with a different team 10 times just because I'm going to be adjusting to that room. All right. We have some decisions that are going to make or break your draft this upcoming weekend, possibly next weekend, whenever it is. But first, we want to say thank you to DraftKings, our sponsor. DK has their DK Best Ball Week. I did notice today there's another promotion. So what you can do, you can scan that QR code in the bottom right section of the screen, but it's a draft one, get one. So you basically get 2 drafts for the price of one. And then they also have a thing where if you're just going to be in draft mode, if you draft one draft today and you opt in first, you draft one draft, they're going to give you a $5 ticket to their DFS Millionaire Contest up to 3 times. The 4th time you enter, they're going to give you another best ball ticket. So it's the last best ball week offer that they have. Make sure you check that out. JJ, you've been drafting. Like you did a draft this morning, and you did pretty well.
Yeah, it was okay. The 11 spot is tough. I've been doing a lot of slow drafts recently to just get my volume up a little bit.
That might be what's killing you, man. I mean,
no, the thing is, I only check them. I check those teams maybe 3 times a day, and I can get through them really fast when I'm on my computer. So that's not. I mean, the thing that's just killing. There's just a lot of content, and then there's still people on Twitter hitting me up saying, you're not doing redraft content. You're just doing best ball content. And I'm like, where have you been? You want to hear the crazy part about that dude who I quote tweeted yesterday? He's not even following me on Twitter.
Oh, he just has a bone to pick with you.
Yeah, I realized it after the fact. But I also, when I quote tweet people like that, I often do it so that other people understand that there's
get him.
It's not if I just wanted to crush that dude, I would just respond to him.
Attack. All right. All I'm saying is that when I look at your DraftKings screen and I see all of those red boxes at the top, it gives me anxiety.
I don't think. See, it's not too. I think I'm in like 70 right now.
How many?
70 or so.
70?
Maybe 60. 60 slows.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe. No, I can tell you the exact number. I'll tell you. And I am currently. I'm going to open up the app and tell you.
I cannot believe anything past 20.
Right,
You're
I'm in 53 right now.
Oh my gosh.
Not quite the 70 that I thought.
All right. Well, that gives me even more anxiety knowing that it's not even those ones I see. They're like probably a lot more.
It's not too bad. Okay, I like to, I'm getting some exposure in different play. I'm getting a lot of like Cooper Kupp recently because I haven't really drafted him this summer. Just getting different exposures.
You get all right, let's answer this question before we get into the news. I do want your take on this. What's a reasonable pick time for a home league redraft?
I mean, if you're talking about like it's on digital, like it's not in person. If it's in person, you basically have you're just kind of hanging out and it's not as big of a deal. Yeah. If it's, in an app or something like that, 90 seconds seems more than reasonable.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even 90 seconds, you might be there for a while when someone's like taking their time, thumbing through everything.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, like I'm in a couple local leagues, but there's one local league that will it's a fun time and I love the dudes that are in it and we have a good time, but like some people will take literally 5 minutes with a pick and it's like, come on, this is your 13th round pick. It does not matter. And then they'll name someone who's already been picked and everyone just yells at them.
All right. Are you ready to get on to today's news?
Well, let's do it.
All right. So we got some quarterback questions right now. Danny Dimes in Indy. And I know this might not do a lot for Danny Dimes, but what's your situation? And so if we're being honest, I almost put Dimes and Flacco in the same category under non-exciting whites. The wine category.
Just we know the meme.
Yeah, you know the meme. But you got Danny Dimes in Indy, you got Joe Flacco in Cleveland. Just give me an overall view of kind of where you are with those.
I think the Flacco thing makes more sense. I'll just put that as the tag for him. But I think the Flacco thing makes a lot more sense than the Dimes thing. With the Flacco thing, you at least have inexperienced quarterbacks alongside him. I don't know what they were ever planning on doing with Kenny Pickett, but to me, what's the point of Kenny Pickett being there? I don't really know. You have Gabriel and Shador. And I think both of them are more, let's see what happens after we're officially kind of out of it. But I said this before, like to me, Flacco is the clear-cut best quarterback in that room to start the season. So you go with the best quarterback to start the season. Now, do I think Flacco's good? No. Do I think Flacco can be okay for fantasy? Sure. But like you have to also be able to evaluate what's going on around that quarterback to really have a good idea. Because it's not just about the quarterback. I think a lot of people, when they look at Cleveland, they're like, why wouldn't you just throw Shador Sanders out there and just see what he can do, or throw Dylan Gabriel out there and see what he can do? And I get it, but you also want to see what you have with your wide receivers, with your tight end, with other players in that offense. And you want favorable game scripts to see what's going on with, the defense. And so I think the Joe Flacco thing makes a ton of sense. That was to be expected, in my opinion, right? The Daniel Jones thing makes absolutely zero sense to me. No, it makes no sense to me at all. And the reason for that is that if you have even if Daniel Jones is 55 to 45 over Anthony Richardson, or let's say you had a room of 7 people and 4 people said Daniel Jones and 3 people said start Anthony Richardson. To me, you still start Anthony Richardson because Daniel Jones does not do anything for you. If it's that close, you got to get this dude reps. You got to get in. You can't draft Anthony Richardson, one of the most raw prospects that we've ever seen, and not give him a fair shot. And I'm not saying that Richardson is good or that he was a good prospect or anything like that, because I think there are so many just beyond. There's a ton of question marks about Richardson as a passer, but if you're building a franchise and building that team, you need answers, and you need the only way you're going to get answers if he gets real game reps, right? And Daniel Jones is likely, very, very, very likely not going to be the answer. Like, if there's not that big of a discrepancy between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, then take on Anthony Richardson and at least learn something. Whereas with Flacco, there is probably a big discrepancy between the two. So it makes sense to throw Flacco under center. I think that this is a classic case in Indianapolis where you have these opposing parties that are just coming, like just going at it, where Steichen and even Chris Ballard, who, how in the world does Ballard still have a job? He is the most overrated GM potentially in the history of this game. What has he done? What has he done? It blows my mind. How long has he been there? Like 10 years? Like, he's been there a really long time. Why?
They haven't they haven't won the AFC South. Yeah.
They've done nothing. He's so overrated. It's unreal. And this is just another decision and situation where it's showing how overrated he is. Steichen is sitting there saying, I got to win because my job is on the line. Whereas I think that you look at somewhere like the Giants, and this is why I think the Giants are going to, like, if they get off to a really cold start, let's say they start the season 3-5 even, or 3-6, right? They have to eventually start thinking Jackson Dart, because if Jackson Dart comes out and shows something, then they could potentially keep their jobs, the coaching staff and stuff, because they're like, we found him and he's really good. You want to keep us around, which is, in my opinion, the argument that Steichen should go with. Instead of hitching everything to Daniel Jones and being like, I'm going to keep my job if Daniel Jones is good, why not just say, hey, we can develop Anthony Richardson. Look at this development that's going on and keep me around for one more year because of this development.
Yeah. I think they're probably hoping that Danny Dimes has this like second location resurgence, like Sam Darnold
probably
third or fourth, or
Jared
Goff,
third because he was in Minnesota last year. But yeah,
Jared Goff, those guys. Yeah,
I'm not even saying that Anthony Richardson is good, but I don't think that it's like if we were talking about Russell Wilson instead of Daniel Jones, I think it's a different conversation. I'd say, okay, the Colts at least have some really interesting pieces, and maybe they could be moderately competitive in what should be a fairly wide open division. Like, it's not like it's a lock that Houston is going to win it or that Jacksonville is going to definitely turn things around. So I don't know, man. Like, I think that with it being Daniel Jones in particular, like, what more do we need? Like, what more evidence do we need that Jones is more than likely not that dude? And maybe he is, and I'm wrong, and I will eat these words and they'll be right. But I think generally speaking, that's just not the way that you should be running a team.
Yeah, because there are plenty of like second location.
Elosa says, if Dimes has a Darnold level season in Indy, I will eat my GD shorts.
But I think there's been a lot of situations where a quarterback goes somewhere else and they just suck. I think it's Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing. There's definitely a bias that goes on where, like I did a study really early on when I was at Number Fire that basically talked about, I wrote about, I sent the article title was, is Derek Carr really the answer for the Oakland Raiders? And it was after his rookie season. Okay. Yeah. And obviously Raiders fans were so into him. And they were finally like hyped that they were going to have this franchise quarterback. I remember it was my first real like taste of the comment section, right? As a writer and as an analyst. And I went back and forth with people, I'm like 25 years old or something like that. And I'm just like, that is how I'm spending my Thursday and Friday night, is just talking to these Raiders fans and being sarcastic with them on the internet. And the funny thing with Carr is that like his career trajectory went where when he was overvalued, or when he was undervalued, I thought that he was overvalued, and vice versa. Like when people were like, "Oh, Derek Carr sucks," I'm like, "No, he's not that bad." Like that's the way that my relationship with Carr and his career went. But very rarely do we see players like really become something after doing nothing to start their careers. And I know that people are going to say, "Well, Anthony Richardson barely played. He has barely played in the NFL." And
he's barely started, and I think he's got like 13 starts
right,
total.
that's what I mean. Like, and even dating back to college, whereas Daniel Jones has 70 or something plus starts in the NFL. Like, we kind of know what's going on here, and I don't think that Shane Steichen is a Kevin O'Connell type offensive mind. I think we're at that point.
All right. If you have pass catchers in Indy, maybe do you like him better, or like with Danny Dimes at the helm?
Yes. After all that, yeah. I mean, I still like, I'm bumping up Josh Downs a little bit. I'm bumping up Michael Pittman a little bit. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is like comfortably in that tier with like Jacobs and Bucky. Jacobs too. I mean, this is an aside, but Jacobs without Marshawn Lloyd is now like, I've been drafting as much as I can of him in the late second, early third. So yeah, I mean, I think that the Colts pass catchers, Adonai Mitchell, who we've been drafting regardless, just because he's been a 20th round pick. Yeah. But AD Mitchell is someone that I think everyone should keep an eye on. See what happens with Alec Pierce. Maybe there's some movement, because AD Mitchell is an Alec Pierce type wide receiver. He actually had a comp of Alec Pierce. Remember last year I was going through all my comps in the prospect guide as the draft was going on, and I nailed like 3 pairings of teams that drafted the wide receivers because they just draft the same players over and over again. Like Xavier Worthy was Marquise Brown. He went to Kansas City. Adonai Mitchell was Alec Pierce. He went to Indianapolis. I mean, Ballard can't help himself with these athletic wide receivers, and he is typically wrong, but AD Mitchell had a pretty good open rate last year. I think he's the easiest value of the group.
Speaking of the Packers, they are currently scrimmaging against the Seahawks, and saw a tweet just now from our News and Rumors channel. Shout out to the News and Rumors channel in our Discord, that Kenneth Walker way full go here in Green Bay in the joint practice, carrying the ball, banging into Packers, catching passes. So
that's good.
Yeah, that's good, because I was getting a little scared. You can be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you should be bumping him down as he's not playing, but now I'll put him back to close to where he, maybe not fully, because in these situations you also, because I've always been a Charbonnet guy. Like, I always thought that he was a pretty good prospect, and I thought he played well last year. And I think he's been good throughout his NFL career. I just think Walker, teams generally favor the Walker type a little bit more. Like this franchise seems to favor him a little bit more, whereas Charbonnet can do it. But with Charbonnet getting more run, you got to think that he at least played to maybe more of like a 35% running back rush share instead of a 25 to 30%. Like there's a little bit more now to Charbonnet and his projection.
Yeah. McMillan's not loving it because you've got Jalen McMillan, and now like we don't know when he's going to play.
Yeah.
If he's going to play this season.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying get well soon, man. That was a tough hit, tough thing to watch. Unfortunately, this is the worst part of the job, in my opinion, when it's not like an ankle, or not like, of course you want ankle injuries to heal and stuff like that. But like, the everyday person gets ankle injuries, and not like a torn ACL the same way a football player does, but leg injuries most of them aren't going to like, be really, really a huge deal down the line. Whereas, something that's head related like this, we're not taking hits the same way that these athletes are. And we got to appreciate what they do for us, for our entertainment, because it's a lot that they're taking. And so it's a really tough spot to be in as an analyst, if I'm being honest and transparent, when stuff like this happens, then you got to be like, oh, here's the fantasy impact of Jalen McMillan having to go to the hospital and make sure that his brain's okay,
Right.
And so I do want to get that out of the way. But without McMillan, I think it opens things up a lot for Emeka Egbuka. I was already really high on Egbuka, and then Godwin has had this hasn't been running on the side fields and stuff, but now they came out today that said he wasn't going to be on the PUP list and that they're ready for him to play in October. And I'm still pretty
why would you not be on the PUP list?
Yeah, I don't know.
If they plan to bring you on in October.
It might have something to do with how they practice or something like that. I'm not totally sure, but yeah, I mean, I think that there's still some cloudiness to what's going on with Chris Godwin. So I'm at the point where I'm like, how much further should Teteroa McMillan be in rankings than Emeka Egbuka? Like,
yeah,
what's the I love Tet. Don't get me wrong. Sorry, Teteroa. I have to say his full name.
You can't say Tet. His mom could be listening.
But like I really like McMillan. I'm drafting him, but I think Egbuka is now, and we're going to talk about this on today's show, I think he's firmly in that really gold mine range of wide receivers at this point.
All right, we've got some falling knives. Breece Hall, one of them. These guys that continue to fall. Darnell Mooney continues to slide. You've got Brandon Ayuk that's like now on DraftKings, you're getting him possibly in the 140s. Rashad White, you've got Spears, all these guys, especially that have some are performance based, but most of them are like injuries.
Yeah.
How are you dealing with this?
I think it depends on player and situation and stuff. Like Rashad White, I'm not drafting.
Yeah.
Because
same.
I like Sean Tucker, right? Tajay Spears, I haven't really been that aggressive because he hasn't been able to stay healthy throughout his career, right? But when it comes to like Breece Hall, where it's not injury related and he's falling, or when it comes to, a guy who's suspended, or when it comes to even like a Jaden Reed or Darnell Mooney, when they could be back week 1, realistically, and it's not that serious of an injury, I'm still drafting them. Like I'm okay with drafting them at their falling price. The Breece Hall thing, we're going to get to it in a little bit. I'll talk about sort of some of the peripherals with him and why he's still kind of interesting. But with all the lack of production that we're seeing from the Jets offense, with the way they're talking about having a committee, I'm still pushing him down my board a little bit. I just think that I'm pushing him down my board not as aggressively as others. So I'm still okay with drafting him at the falling price, not at his previous price.
Yeah. I looked at Hayden Winks, one of our buddies. He said yesterday he posted a picture of the ADP of Darnell Mooney, and like he was going in like 93, 94 and got all the way up to 86, 87.
Yeah.
And now he is like all the way down to like 105.
Yeah.
And this is like in redraft league. So it's just like he I first week of the season.
Yeah.
So it's
I gotta throw this out there. Eloso says you shouldn't be aggressive on Spears after last year's draft guide with LOL. Don't make me pull out receipts. I can pull out that draft guide, talk about how I talked about the ambiguous backfield, how Tony Pollard was still a good pick. I just happened to call out Tajay Spears there. Don't do this, Eloso. You don't want to do this. I will own you on the internet if you do that.
Eloso. I tread carefully.
I'm just saying. The whole argument. There were 3 ambiguous backfields last year. It was the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Titans. And 2 of the 3 ambiguous backfields had borderline league winners. And then Tajay Spears came through in the fantasy playoffs for people.
You did like the Titans a lot though last year, though.
Oh, I did. No, the passing attack was wrong. Yeah, that was the wrong league. Yeah.
Guilty as charged as well, but we're back this year, baby.
That part was an L. Yeah.
I heard Denny on Living the Stream saying he's all in on the Titans offense, and I just thought, poor JJ, just surrounded by Titans truthers.
What could go wrong?
All right, the mess in Miami though. What could go wrong with Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill? Hill's not practicing. I'm just getting so worried about this Miami situation. You've got all these rumors about Brian Robinson possibly coming over to play running back. Like what's going on with Miami?
I'm basically at the point where I'm pushing Devon Achane down a little bit because of this injury. And I have some worry too that because of the injury, they're going to say, hey, let's maybe not give him as big of a workload. Like that's somewhat of a concern for me.
Yeah.
So I'm pushing him down a little bit. Tyreek Hill, I basically got my exposure at the Kings Classic and I'm good. I don't need to go much harder with Tyreek. With that being said, like there's such a dead area. We talk about this like every show. There's such a dead area in that third round that if you want to go with Tyreek, I'm not going to stop you because I understand the ceiling outcome. I think though what this means is that Jalen Waddle is an easy click. And then I'll also say that Ollie Gordon, come on down. Because, I mentioned this on Becoming a Best Ball Bro. I think that my mistake with the Miami backfield this summer was locking in Jalen Wright at RB2 and then looking at Alexander Mattison and Ollie Gordon and saying one of these two might get cut or make the practice squad or something like that. Who's it going to be? And Madison started getting some love out of camp, and then obviously has a season-ending injury. And so now with a season-ending injury, my mistake was not being reactive enough to thinking Ollie Gordon should just be the click, because the Zap model loved Ollie Gordon. He had a Ramondre Stevenson and James Conner top 2 comps. He had a really good production profile, a low risk profile as a running back, and obviously day 3 draft capital and such. But Gordon to me is someone who is pretty intriguing, and Jalen right now is banged up. So
yeah, he left practice limping. It's another guy. Like originally, I think he was with the ones, and then he said he got banged up, left with a pretty bad limp, and now Ollie Gordon. He makes him a lot easier of a click right now as well.
Yeah, right. And he's going to go. I mean, now he's going to go in stupid rounds, and so I think in best ball, I'm just not going to have enough Ollie Gordon, and I'm going to be really mad because all of my analysis. Go read the prospect guide. All of my analysis is like, yeah, Ollie Gordon's probably a good player. So I'm a little bit, personally upset with how I handled it, but hopefully people were able to react stronger than I did with the Alexander Mattison injury.
All right, Pacheco RB1 looks like he is back to old form. I did see though that they are looking for they were Rossini. She posted that the Chiefs, that the Bears, and one other team, I forget what it was, are looking for running back help.
Yeah, the Rossini report.
Oh, the Browns. It was the Browns, because so perfect. The Browns spend 2 draft picks on running backs, and now they're still looking for.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Brashard Smith has played himself into a spot on that roster based on like they don't have that explosiveness the same way that he brings it, and they can use him in some creative ways, which is what he basically was when they drafted him. It's like, all right, this is a converted wide receiver to running back, and he was pretty good as a running back last year. A lot of good athleticism metrics and measurables, good receiver. So being in an Andy Reid offense, he can probably find a way to get him the ball in a creative way. And so let's buy into that a little bit. So I do think that Brashard Smith, even though there's been a lot of rumors that he won't make the team, I think he should make the team. So then it comes down to Eli Mitchell and Kareem Hunt, which to me, I don't know why and how Kareem Hunt continues to be somebody that gets the love that he does within that organization. But I didn't think he was any like that good last year. He can carry a workload, sure, but you can find that almost anywhere. So look, if they are in on like Brian Robinson or something, obviously that's going to hurt Pacheco a lot. I don't think that they would be though. Like I'd be surprised if Kansas City is the destination for Brian Robinson. Maybe it is. Surprise maybe is too strong of a word. I just think that they have the right enough pieces there with like Pacheco and Brashard Smith and even Kareem Hunt. Eli Mitchell is probably the one that's going to end up getting cut. But I got to give Dr. Jeff Mueller a shout here. He was on Late Round Perspectives last year. And on Perspectives last year, he talked about when Isaiah Pacheco was going to come back from injury, that he's not going to be the same, that he's not going to look like he did to start the season. And Jeff was completely right. And because Jeff said that and he could forecast that, it makes me feel a lot better about Pacheco this year, because it means that last year's performance was more than likely based on the injury and not just because he just got bad at football, Right. So I think buying into Pacheco makes sense. I have him as like a low end RB2. I don't know. He's kind of dead zone-y, but I don't know where he gets drafted in your home league, but I think there's probably a pretty wide, there's a wide range where these guys go in general within these drafts.
He and Pollard kind of fit into that RB2 range, especially if
they're in the same tier for me, like very similar kind of outlooks, more than likely.
All right. Last night we got news that the Saints traded a 4th and a 7th for Devon Vele. What in the world?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, I have been on the stream and streaming my teams, my best ball teams, and I've been on Becoming a Best Ball Bro saying that I've used a lot of 20th round picks on Devon Vele because everything out of Denver seemed to point to Devon Vele being their starting slot player. Now, fortunately, I got a lot of Pat Bryant. I got a lot of Marvin Mims and even some Troy Franklin. So it actually might end up being a net positive for me personally. I'm, if I'm trying to cope a little bit and give some reasons why it's okay. And maybe Vele gives us some usable weeks in New Orleans because they spent a 4th to get him and a 7th.
Yeah.
Like
we still don't know who the quarterback is.
Right. I think Pat Bryant is a big winner here. A lot of people are saying Troy Franklin and Franklin will probably play a little bit in the slot, but I see Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin as more of the players, the archetypes that are similar. And then Vele and Pat Bryant were sort of more of the big slot types that Sean Payton has used in the past, like Marcus Colston as the obvious example. And so I think Pat Bryant steps in and maybe isn't the slot right away. Maybe they do rotate guys and they use Mims in the slot a little bit and Franklin in the slot a little bit. But Pat Bryant could really establish himself, as the primary go-to slot player in that offense. And that, because of that, I want to be higher than the market on Pat Bryant. Like, I think that he is someone that was underrated. If you go back and you look at one of my newsletters that I sent out in May, when rookie drafts were going on, I had like 4 of my favorite values in rookie drafts, and Pat Bryant was one of the 4 because his production profile was pretty good. People were just kind of shocked that he went where he went in the draft, but he's a pretty good player. And I think that with Sean Payton there, I think he has a vision for how he can use him out of the slot. And it seems like things have gone well in camp to back up some of the data marks that I was looking at throughout the offseason. So I'm in on Bryant. Rest in peace, the Vele bags, because they were better in Denver than they are in New Orleans, but maybe they're still okay in New Orleans.
All right. Let me throw out another name, and then we got to get some breaking news. But Evan Ingram.
Yeah, Ingram should get a little bit of a boost too. But I don't want to boost it too much because I think
if he's that like big slot guy, we've talked about the Joker role.
But there's a very real chance that Devon, like, here's the thing. A guy like Ingram doesn't get nearly the boost as a guy like Pat Bryant because now Pat Bryant doesn't have a player literally in front of him on the field that would be stopping him from getting on the field, whereas Ingram was going to be playing alongside some slot to begin with. So it's not really that, because I think Pat Bryant's probably better than Vele anyway. Like, there's a very real chance that's the case.
Okay, let's get to the next breaking news. This is live. Polka dotted.
Oh, did Jalen Polk get sent somewhere?
No, he's out for the season with a shoulder injury.
Wow.
So, man, talk about just a fall from, like, the Patriots, man, with their wide receivers. They've been struggling, but this kind of...
I look back and I think about that Washington team, the Huskies, where they had Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, and Jalen Polk. And Jalen Polk, I liked McMillan coming out, and you can read the prospect guide from last year about this. I like McMillan because he basically was outperforming Jalen Polk when they were all active and healthy. And he had like good slot work, whatever. And it's funny though, because last year, if we're being objective about what happened last year, we're not projecting here. We're just looking at the descriptive data and how things went. Jalen Polk was one of the worst rookie wide receivers we've ever seen, at least over the last decade. Okay. Jalen McMillan came on towards the end of the season, but he was pretty rough to start, and he really got by on touchdowns. And Rome Odunze was a really big disappointment last year. And of course, there's situational factors that go into that. And I'm in on a Dunze this year. But you look at that and you're like, maybe Michael Penix was just really, really good. Like, what if this is, it's like the reverse Zach Mettenberger. I remember when
you have lots of Adunze, so careful there.
Because Mettenberger played at LSU with OBJ and Jarvis Landry. And I remember him coming out, and people were either on the Mettenberger side or like the wide receiver side. And obviously the wide receivers were the reason that he did what he did. Sometimes you just get everyone's really good, like that, like Joe Burrow and what happened in LSU there. But I don't know, maybe this is a signal that Penix is really good.
Yeah, Efton Chisholm III also probably makes the team now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, doesn't this feel like one of those situations? There's always like these like fringe guys that you're like, are they really going to cut their second rounder from last year, and then they get hurt or something, and you're like, this is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's almost like the same thing that happened in Tennessee.
I thought you were going to say with Jeffrey Epstein, but we can move on.
All right.
Not to get political, of course.
No. I don't even know if it's political anymore. Let's get on to today's data.
Today's data.
That's right. We do have news. We do have news and data sound clips coming the start of the season. So,
all right. This is kind of complicated to explain because I'd spent a lot of words explaining in the newsletter that dropped yesterday. All right. So there's 4 buckets here. Full PPR RB20, full PPR RB10, half PPR RB20, half PPR RB10. So this is looking at the percentage of players who were able to finish essentially as full PPR RB20, full PPR RB10, based on the top here being target share rates and the side being running back rush share rates. Now, when I say full PPR RB20, it's technically not where they ranked. It's just based on where the RB20 in full PPR leagues has scored. So they've scored on average 13 PPR points per game through the years. And so these are all the running backs. So essentially, let's look at this top left corner where it's less than 9% target share per game rate and then a 30 to 50% running back rush share. How often essentially do they score 13 PPR points per game? And it's 9.1% of the time. Now, a lot of those players are likely closer to 50%. And closer to 9% than they are, 1% target share and a 31% running back rush share, but you get the idea. And I think what's interesting about this chart and why I published it yesterday was in relation to Breece Hall, because a lot of people are like, I'm fading Hall. I'm really worried about the workload. And I just want people to make sure that they're not fading too hard. You don't have to be aggressive with Hall. I'm not even going to be aggressive with Hall at this point. He's going to be removed as a player to target tonight, just because I don't think it's worth being aggressive with this situation that he's in. But
you shouldn't really target him because like he might fall to you. Like
that's what I'm saying. Like I don't want to say, and by the way, when I saw this on Reddit, when I cross someone out as a player to target, it does not mean that I'm not targeting them anymore. It just means that I'm at the market basically with that player, or I'm not going to be aggressive in getting them. Like I crossed off Khalil Shakir because of the injury, and that doesn't mean that I'm fading him. I crossed off Evan Ingram, doesn't mean I'm fading him. It just means I was bullish before the market shifted or a scenario, something shifted with the player. And so I changed my mind with how I want to target him. So with Breece Hall, what's interesting is if you look at his last 2 seasons, he's been around like a 68% running back rush share and like a 14 to 15%, target share. And if you assume that he's going to be in that like 13 to 15% range, I would argue he has a more than 15% target share ceiling because of the lack of alternatives in that offense. You can see over here how important that is, for a player to even at a 30 to 50%, running back rush share. Like for instance, full PPR top 10, right? You have a 27% chance of a guy who's in a 30 to 50% running back rush share with a more than 15% target share to get top 10 status in full PPR leagues. That's better than if a player has a 9 to 11% target share or 11% or less and a 50 to 70% running back rush share, right? So it's the idea that we should be focusing more on running back receiving than we generally do. And you can use this kind of chart, screenshot it if you want. If you have the newsletter, you can just save down the image, whatever you want to do. But you can use this kind of chart to sort of think through like, okay, Tank Bigsby, Jordan Mason, these guys, Braylon Allen, these guys who are less than 9% target share guys more than likely, what are the true real probabilities of them being difference makers in fantasy football? And you can see right here that you would rather have a sub 50% running back rush share running back who has a high target share than a guy who's in that 50 to 70% range who has a low target share. And that's why I wanted to bring all this data forward and talk about Hall in this way, because it's really easy to ding him on situation. It's really easy to listen to the coach speak and say, Braylon Allen's going to see a lot of work, so therefore I'm really nervous about Breece Hall. And you should be. You should ding him a little bit because of the coach speak and because of how they're probably going to use that backfield. All I'm saying is it's really important to have that nuance and to have that context of how important the receiving stuff is at the running back position in both full and half PPR leagues.
Yeah. It's tough when he's falling like in the 50s. It's tough to fade him.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, for the guide update later today, I still think that he's in like the 40 to 45 range. Like, yeah, I still think that he belongs with a lot of the I mean, like, it's tough. And it depends on, like, you know, I think that if your league is going running back heavy, you take a running back in that range. And if it's not, you can go wide receiver in that range. Like, you can go, if your league is going really running back heavy and you're staring at like James Cook, Breece Hall, those kinds of players, then you can go running back if they're going running back heavy. But if not, you can just pass on that tier and just go with the gold mine wide receivers who we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, especially in those PPR, like Braylon Allen. I like Braylon Allen. I was targeting when he was like in the 180s, 190s, but he's a huge back. He's not really like a pass catching back.
Also different in best ball than in season long, I think, because those types of players can find the end zone and give you that one-off that's not predictable, but they're rarely going to be predictable and be placed in your starting lineup very confidently.
All right, let's get to make or break draft decisions. This should be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I came up with one at each position, basically, of like where I think like your draft could go south or where you could sort of win in your draft at each position. And so I'm going back to the we're going to call it the wide receiver gold mine area, where there's just so many good league winning wide receivers. Like, I'll just go down this list and I'll just bold the players who I think are like, you know, have like crazy ceilings versus where they're going. Right. So like Devontae Smith, Tedoroa McMillan, I think Jalen Waddle, you know, you can make an argument for Calvin Ridley easily, Jamison Williams, George Pickens, like Travis Hunter, Stephon Diggs, Rome Odunze, Ricky Pearsall. Like, there's so many players that you could go up and down this list and be like, oh, I see an argument for them to be a top 20 guy pretty easily. And they're going outside the top 20. So my stance on all of this is that, you know, because there's so much upside with these wide receivers and there's other guys that I think people are drafting based on what they perceive as a floor, and that floor is actually not even necessarily there. Like, a lot of people just make the assumption that George Pickens has a worse floor than DK Metcalf. But does he? Because he's in a situation where his team, his offense is going to throw the ball at least more than likely 100 more times than, you know, the Steelers will. Or, you know, in his target share, yeah, it's going to be lower than DK Metcalf's, but I would rather be receiving targets from Dak Prescott than Aaron Rodgers, you know, or Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton probably is more of a floor than a ceiling, but
yeah.
You know, what if some of these wide receivers develop more? Or what if they are a really run-heavy team because their defense is really good and the running backs are better this year versus Devontae Smith? They're going to throw the ball a whole lot more. And he has contingent upside. Cortland Sutton doesn't have that contingent upside, you know? So, like, I think that people probably think of floor ceiling a little bit incorrectly, in my opinion. We're a little bit too bold in how we think about floor ceiling. I mean, I do it myself too. It's really hard to not do that. By the way, I should have bolded Emeka Egbuka at the bottom there too. But this to me, this whole range of wide receivers, like, you're going to be, you have a chance to really start your draft off with like good running backs, a quarterback or a tight end or something like that. And if you're able, this is why auctions can be like awesome this year. If you're able to get like 3 of these kinds of players, I think that you're fine at wide receiver, even though they're going later.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, just knowing that these options are there. I heard you talking to Denny about Devonta Smith on the Living the Stream.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it as far as just like the target share there, and just how last year was an outlier with how few passes that they threw.
Devontae Smith had his best season of his career last year from an analytics perspective. Best yards per route run, best target share per game. Like, I know that there were injuries around him, but that's the point too, is that if one of AJ Brown or Dallas Goedert go down, we're going to see a big spike in target share for Devontae Smith. And I think Denny's reaction is the reaction that a lot of people have, where they're just like, it's Devontae Smith. What more? It's okay. Yeah, he might look boring, but how is Courtland Sutton not any more boring? Courtland Sutton's never been a top 24 wide receiver in PPR points per game. I know that he had a good finish last year, and that's what people are really latching onto this year. But the circumstances in Denver, they could be a pretty low volume offense from a passing perspective. And Evan Ingram's there now too.
But just having this range right here, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Just knowing that you're going to have some great options there.
Yeah. So you could be more aggressive, and that's why I want to rank the running backs that I talked about before, like James Cook and Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall. I want to rank them at least amongst some of these guys, because I do think that you'll be able to get the running back, but then also get a couple of the wide receivers and really be set this year.
All right, let's get on to the next one. Missing out on early round quarterbacks.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't really have a ton of notes for these. This is just like, stuff that it's more high level stuff. But if you don't get an early round quarterback, one of the big four, there's so many quarterbacks to choose from late that you have a shot, very easy shot, to find the dude who's going to give you that outlier touchdown rate season, that pocket passer or whomever. Obviously, you want to target the guys who can run. So like Drake May is the easy go-to. He's going to be my highest exposed quarterback this year. But like I'm in super flex drafts right now, and I'm waiting at quarterback in super flex drafts. Now, in super flex drafts, you got to be reactive to how other players and other teams in your draft are drafting, right? So like, in my opinion, if you're in a super flex draft, go with one of the big four quarterbacks, and then after that to start your draft. And then after that, be reactive to how your league is drafting to know when to pounce on other quarterbacks and really be real. Like, for instance, probably should have pulled up the screen, but I'm going to draft right now. I'll pull it up on my phone so that I can really be specific about this. Edwin Porras, the Dr. Edwin Porras, and I very poorly roll my tongue, but that's how he pronounces his name. He told me he appreciates it too. So he runs this league where it's a bunch of analysts and him, and it's a super flex league, 3 wide receivers, 1 flex, and tight end, and 2 running back. And we're drafting, and I'm looking, and I'm like, okay, Joe Burrow goes 108. All 4 quarterbacks are gone. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to take wide receivers. So I get Justin Jefferson. Then I get Malik Neighbors because Patrick Mahomes went around the turn. I'm in the 10 spot. And then I got Jackson Smith and Jigba because I wanted to just go like heavy wide receiver. And then I got Travion Henderson, and it was going around the other way. And I'm like, oh man, I could hypothetically be screwed at quarterback. But if you look at that point in time, there aren't many quarterbacks going in that round 2, round 3 range in super flex leagues. And there's really not that big of a delta, in my opinion, from Patrick Mahomes to, I don't know, Justin Herbert and CJ Stroud and Jared Goff and such, right? Like the group of pocket passers. So I ended up getting Justin Herbert as my QB1 in round 5. And then around the turn and pick 11 and 12, CJ Stroud, Jared Goff, and JJ McCarthy all went. I was going to get JJ McCarthy as my QB2. And then I just didn't get a quarterback because the other quarterbacks available now are Michael Penix, Cam Ward, Bryce Young. It's kind of that tier, right?
Yeah.
But I'll try to hopefully like double tap those, have that QB2 spot kind of play by matchup and go from there while just dominating running back and wide receiver. JSN's my number 3 wide receiver. I have James Cook and Travion Henderson. And you just kind of like, you got to read your room when you're doing super flex leagues. But this plays into the idea that there is a very, very flat tier at quarterback from like, I mean, maybe you could say Burrow's in his own tier. Okay. But after Burrow through like QB 20, like it's crazy where I could sit here and literally argue why CJ Stroud could outscore any of the quarterbacks in front of him, And so to me, if you can't get the big 4, maybe consider Burrow if he falls, but I would not be drafting Mahomes unless he falls. I would not be drafting Kyler unless he falls, all that kind of stuff. And just get some of the dudes that are going later. And honestly, if you have enough bench space, get 2 of them because that increases your odds of finding who that dude is going to be this year, who kind of outpaces his touchdown rate.
Yeah, I think we talked about it on one of the shows or live streams. I forget, but or it was the members only, I think, forum that we did the Q&A for our patrons where they ask questions. But in the league, the stacked league I'm in, I was like running back or wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, and just the 2 positions. And I was waiting late on tight end. I was waiting late on quarterback, and I would ask you, now can I go? Because I'm at the end, and you're like, wait.
Yeah, it's such a flat tier. What's the point in reaching on? And I say reaching on like Brock Purdy, right? Like I like Purdy a lot. I do. And I drafted him in the Apex League, but I drafted him in the Apex League because I got him in like the 13th round, like I'm talking like single digit round for these kinds of quarterbacks. If you were to look at Jordan Love or Justin Herbert versus Brock Purdy versus Dak Prescott, all those guys, if you were to tell me, which one is going to score, I'll have my rankings and I'll go probably like Dak or Purdy, in their own tier, and then like Love and Herbert later. But if I were to assign a probability of which guy is going to score more points this year, I mean, if you're going Dak versus Jordan Love, I'd say 60-40 in Dak's favor. That's not nearly enough of a probability swing to draft Dak 3 or 4 rounds ahead of Jordan Love, so I'll wait. I'll just wait.
This is that draft you're showing your screen, but Nico and Neighbors, we both got Neighbors. Wilson don't feel great about.
Which draft is this one? Oh, this is the
stacked league.
Yeah.
With the experts, 10K to charity. But then Ridley as my wide receiver 4, like you talked about, that range. Pacheco, Jones then becomes like my bench player.
Right.
And all of that being said, I have Drake May and Caleb Williams to figure out who I want to start now because it's not a super flex.
Right.
So it's just like, especially when I have been doing best ball drafts, when you have like over 200 best ball drafts under your belt, your brain can get kind of broken at first with these redrafts. So just thinking, these guys can actually be there. These quarterbacks are actually going to be there.
Right.
Someone
said, who's more likely to throw 35 touchdowns, Dak or Love? I'd give Dak the edge, but I'm saying that if you look at Jordan Love's body of work and Matt LaFleur and the way that the Packers offense has performed with Matt LaFleur, I mean, they're consistently a top 8 offense in touchdowns per game. So, like, I'd prefer Dak. I'm just saying that there's still decent odds for Jordan Love to be better than Dak this year.
All right. Which late round tight end?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Right now, we're at the big 3, and then there's just this question mark of like who you should get late. I really, really punt the position. Like last night, I did the Living the Stream draft where there's 14 teams. It's 18 rounds. It's a deeper starting lineup, and you only need to start 1 tight end, so I wasn't going to force it. And I ended up getting Mason Taylor, who I think is just fine, whatever. I'm not really high on him. And then I got Theo Johnson at the end. And Tom Everett Scott and Denny gave me some crap for it and who my tight ends were. But I don't think Theo Johnson has like a substantially worse odds of being a weekly like difference maker than someone who's going to go 4 or 5 rounds ahead of him. There's some guys that I don't mind. Like I like Tucker Kraft a lot. I've drafted when Dalton Kincaid falls. I've just thrown that dart. Dallas Goedert, I think is a little bit undervalued. So like, it's fine if you want to get players in that range. Just I don't think you need to reach for them because they're more of like a floor play as opposed to finding who that late round tight end might be. I love Chigakonkwo at this point because they've been using him like an insane, like his route participation might be over 90% this year. And if that's the case, that's incredible. That's like Cade Otton was getting that last year when he was going through that crazy run. And he was like, but Chigakonkwo is athletic and has that kind of like pass catching upside. So I think Okonkwo is becoming my favorite go-to tight end. He's kind of going up my rankings based on some of the preseason stuff and the lack of alternatives in that offense. And you always want to find a tight end who could be the number 2 pass catcher on his team. But would we be shocked if he's the number 2 target getter on Tennessee? Like,
no, because we don't know who the number 2 target.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to probably be like a Lockett morphed into Iamaner type situation or something like that. So I think Okonkwo is a really interesting late round tight end right now.
All right, and then the final one. Who we picking? What running back after Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, so this is based on ADP again, and it goes back to that grouping that I talked about, by those wide receivers. So if you're in a running back heavy draft and it's a half PPR league or standard and people are just pounding the running back position, you probably do want to go after one of these guys before you start digging into that wide receiver tier. And the question is, who do you get after Jonathan Taylor? And I think Amari and Hampton shouldn't be part of this list, but this is based on ADP, or this is actually based on rankings right now over on Fantasy Pros, based on expert consensus. So like Amari and Hampton, probably someone hasn't updated their rankings or something like that, and he's too low. So I would not consider him a part of this group, but like, I think that you can make arguments for each of these guys next. Maybe not Chuba. James Conner, I'm a little bit worried about just because of the age thing, and maybe Trey Benson's a little bit more involved. Travion Henderson, I think, deserves to be in this because to me, the argument I've been making for Henderson is like, if I'm making that argument for Breece Hall, I'm going to make the exact same one for Travion Henderson based on his probable receiving work, but it's in a better offense. So yeah, I'm probably going to lean into Travion and be more aggressive than the market with Travion, but love Kenneth Walker this year. Kyron, haven't really been in on him, but I understand just based on the drop off that we see to draft him if you want to. Alvin Kamara, a safe bet to get a lot of work through the air. And so I do think that this is the question you got to ask is after Jonathan Taylor, who are you going after? You can check my rankings to see where I have things, but it is a big make or break decision that you're going to make in your draft.
Yeah. If you decide to make it at that point.
Yeah.
Like we talked about Pacheco earlier and Joel says Tony Pollard, top 3 offensive line, which let's pump the brakes on the top 3 offensive line. I mean, I'm as a Titans fan, I hope that's the case, but yeah, you've got Tajay Spears a little banged up. So, if you want, you can wait on running back.
Yeah. If you look, I would say that if you pass on this tier and you just go wide receiver, make sure that it's not you forcing it with like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Garrett Wilson, in my opinion. I don't want to force those guys. Yeah. I would rather just reach for a running back, feel some security at the running back. I think JSN is kind of the line in the sand at wide receiver in that range. And then you sort of flip your mind to Kittle or one of the running backs. And then from there, you can start getting wide receivers. But if you pass on the running backs, then your next sort of like line from an ADP perspective would be RJ Harvey, number 1.
Yeah.
And then the Pollard Pacheco kind of grouping there. I'm not really that into Swift, but like that, I don't know. I think that it's like a pretty formulaic way of drafting this year if you're sort of in that middle to back half of the first round.
He said, I'd rather bring up T-Mac, Tetaroa, and Pickens before drafting Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I'm getting more and more nervous about Wilson. I mean, I've been 4-ish wide receiver spots below market throughout the offseason, but I'm to the point where I'm like, you got to balance like the talent, of course, but there's just so much going on after him that I just have him in the same, him and Marvin Harrison are in the same tier right now. This rankings update is going to really reflect what I just talked about, because I think it's an important concept that's really like come together well over the last week or two from an ADP perspective. But I think they're in the same tier as like Devontae Smith, Jameson Williams, Tetaroa, McMillan. I don't think we need to reach for those guys.
All right. That's a good solid list right there. I feel like these are the make or break decisions, we're getting into, and hopefully people will make the right decisions in their drafts. A reminder that we've got the late round draft guide available, $29.99. And also we've got the rookie and the prospect guide, year 2 with rookies in there. Running backs, wide receivers. If you want to get all JJ's thoughts in there, we just reduced it to $9.99. So basically, hey, just buy us a nice cup of coffee and read all of it's like 180 pages or something.
I would say if you get the reason that we reduced that is obviously because it's not really rookie draft season anymore. Yeah. But I wouldn't be buying the prospect guide for rookie rankings, because you can become a patron and get the more up-to-date rankings that way. I think the prospect guide is good as like a reference point for you as the season goes on. You can be, oh, where did the model have this guy? And like, what are the favorable and unfavorable points to his profile? It can be
a lot of people get it for dynasty purposes, which those drafts have already happened.
Right. So like, don't get it for rank. If I'm being just totally transparent, don't get it for rankings. Get it for because the year 2 stuff is in there too, where you know, there's some interesting numbers for players too, like Jalen Coker and how he looked, or you know, Ricky Pearsall and how his number isn't really that great, but I am drafting him a ton. Keon Coleman, I think, is an underrated player at this point because his year 2 score didn't look that bad. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that you can dig into, and that was written back in March. So stuff has changed for sure, but you can at least get the general idea of how I felt about those guys back then.
Yeah, I'll give an example. Someone asked a question of like keepers.
All I hear is saying don't buy his products.
But they're asking, all right, what player to draft in this year will have an insane keeper value next year? And then they reference, you know, 3 rookies from last year: Bowers, Neighbors, and McConkey. So but it's like, well, those were all guys you can get. Like one guy I'll be targeting is Igbuka in my keeper league for next year. And the model loved him.
Model loved Igbuka, and it's fun. It's fun for me too to see like, I like when Keandre Lambert-Smith was steaming up, and it's like, it's like a favorable profile that I wrote up for him back when he was drafted. But you know, there's profiles for literally every dude that got invited to the NFL Combine. There is not one for Bill Krosky-Merritt because he didn't get invited to the Combine. So he doesn't really have, I mean, he has a score, but he's not really a part of the guide in that way. I wish he was, so I could have like really dug into his profile. I didn't really dig into his profile until basically like a month ago. So he has really good like secondary peripherals, not very good marks in the model, but I can see why he might end up hitting.
Good luck with that Washington situation and redrafts. That's all I have to say. Shout out to our sponsors, DraftKings. You can scan this QR code right now. Get your draft one, get one. It's DK Best Ball Week. They've got a whole other slew of tickets that you can get for these best ball drafts. And they're fun. They're just a fun primer before you do your actual draft. So thanks to them for sponsoring. Make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter. Obviously, I'm just going to assume you're already subscribed to our podcast, but subscribe to that if you haven't already. And then, of course, this YouTube channel. Leave a comment on who some of the make or break decisions for you are. JJ, you have any final thoughts?
No. Check out the newsletter, lateround.com. Check out the prospect guide, though, for real. Like, I think that I think people have said that it's helped them in season too. It's not just like a dynasty thing.
Cool. Awesome. Well, JJ, thanks for all your thoughts. You know, you're exhausted right now with all the content, but don't worry, season's about to start.
I'm only doing best ball content though, as people know. It's only been best ball.
Stop. All right. Love you all. Appreciate you all. And we'll see you next time here on the Late Round Fantasy Football Show, sponsored by DraftKings. Peace.